78 minutes. That is the precise length of time police are understood to have waited before going into the elementary school in Texas to tackle the gunman who killed 19 children and 2 teachers. Public anger has been growing since the revelation on Friday. Officers waited in a hallway as children trapped with the teenage gunman made desperate emergency calls. The US Department of Justice is looking at this, is going to investigate the cause of this delay. President Biden met grieving families on a visit to Uvalde earlier, along with survivors and first responders. Barbara Pletasher reports from the town.
This is the hardest visit a president has to make, especially when the victims are so young. Mr. Biden and his wife Jill joined the mourning of a devastated community, pausing to recognize each of those murdered at this school, 19 children and 2 teachers. The president draws on his personal history in these moments of public grief because he's lost 2 children of his own. A bouquet of flowers added to the mound of remembrance that seeks to dampen the horror by honoring the dead. The rampage began when the teenage gunman entered the school through a back door, armed with a high-power rifle. Children as young as 8 were trapped with him for an hour before security forces finally stormed in. The Justice Department announced today it would review the police response. Mr. Biden went on to meet privately with the families of victims. He also attended a church service. As he left, the crowd outside called for action. But this is a difficult political environment. There's a fierce debate about how to stop such attacks. The president wants to tighten gun laws and faces strong partisan opposition. Especially in Texas. This is, after all, gun country. There are mixed feelings about Mr. Biden's visit.
I don't know if it can make any difference, actually. I think that as a nation, we're just very divided. But I think that, in a time of crisis, it's great for leaders to show unity.
We just need to grieve. We just come here and give us hope for tomorrow, but don't tell us politically what we need to do.
Most of all, the families did not want their pain to be drawn into the political disputes. Patricia Castanon is lost in a fog of grief at the death of her niece Annabelle.
She was happy, smiley. This is how she was with me. There's no words for me to say. She was just a good person.
You know that the president is coming to visit. Do you think that will help?
No.
Why do you say that?
Because he can't bring her back. He can't bring her back. He can't bring none of them back. And nobody can.
He can't bring them back, and he's struggling to protect others. His biggest obstacle is how to prevent this from happening again. Barbara Pletasher, BBC News, Uvalde, Texas.
Earlier we spoke to US gun law expert Robert Spitzer about the criticism that the police waited for more than an hour before dealing with the gunman.
There is a strategy which says that if there's an active shooter, police responders need to go in immediately. However, if the active shooter stops shooting, stops firing, and there's a pause, that might be reason to hold back, to wait for a SWAT team perhaps, or specially trained unit, for fear that other people might be injured if they rush in at a moment that's inopportune. That would be the justification. That happened at the Pulse nightclub in Florida several years ago, where there was a long delay before the authorities finally went in. The problem in the case of the Texas school is apparently they shouldn't have waited. And the initial instinct of at least some of the police officers on scene to go right in was countermanded because they got orders not to do that. And in retrospect, I mean, we don't know because we don't have a full investigation yet, but it looks like that was a mistake. And indeed, even the police officials said that.